Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Heart of Micron. I'm your host, Martina Trucco, and today I'm joined by Viral Gosalia, part of our Micron team in Mumbai, India. Viral, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
Tell us a little bit more about your role at Micron before we dive in.
Absolutely. So I'm based out of Mumbai and I take care of embedded and mobile sales for India region. And I'm very happy with my journey at Micron so far, which is since May 2019.
As we dive into the story of why we're here today to talk about the heart of Micron, you're based in Mumbai, and I understand that Mumbai in particular, within India, which has been faced with such a large crisis due to the COVID pandemic, has really been facing an unprecedented humanitarian crisis because of coronavirus. Tell us a little bit more about the context that you're all going through in your city.
Sure, absolutely. For that, let me briefly introduce you about Mumbai as a city. Mumbai is known as a city of dreams in India. And it is also one of the capital for commercial, financial, and entertainment industries. It has been a relatively young city in a rich history of India of 5,000 years. This city is around 200 years old, or young, I'd say, relative to India. And it was basically because of all the migrants across the country with a lot of dreams and very enterprising people who built India and built Mumbai rather. So Mumbai was one of the forefront places for the industrial revolution with cotton industries. And then we had the first stock markets, financial banks, and so many industries. And it's a city where a lot of people across the India come with dreams, very similar to what you would see in US, where people would come with dreams for a better future. And they will bring a lot of enterprising spirit. And also that is what Mumbai stands for in India. And like all other cities, we had a lot of migrants coming up in India, across the places in India to Mumbai for a better living. And what happened is that while India was also going through a structural changes and there were a lot of reboot going on in the economy, and all of a sudden this the coronavirus hit us and there was a massive lockdown. And this was an unprecedented experience. I think no government or no local authorities were prepared for this kind of pandemic. Of course, everyone is doing their best, but this kind of pandemics can only be overcome by not only government, but a strong partnership between governments and the communities and all the people. So that is how we started in Mumbai with a lockdown, and we had a lot of migrants in construction industry, in services industry. A lot of people were homeless, were living around, they were doing a lot of odd jobs or in construction industry, and I saw all of a sudden their livelihood totally impacted. So that is how we really started thinking about it, how can we help? And my wife got this idea, and that's how we really started. So that's how we are seeing this particular thing.
And of course, the pandemic hits the most vulnerable members of our communities first, and in the hardest ways. And so tell us a little bit more about what you and your wife and your family decided to do to help in your community.
Sure. So as soon as we realized that this lockdown is going to impact a lot of livelihoods for a lot of people around us, and then we saw some very disturbing news articles and news on the television about people trying to go away from the city and the states, but were unable to because even the transportation and everything was closed. So and then we once had we just went around our home and we saw some of the people really struggling with food and those aspects, and that is when I and my wife really decided to help those folks out. And we started with a small kitchen operation that we were associated with in a close community of friends. But even that got impacted because in lockdown, every people gathering was locked down. So then what happened was that my wife just and started cooking extra food to begin, to really see how much will be sufficient. So first day we started with 10, it was not at all sufficient. And then she ramped up, and that's how this whole journey really started. And then we were able to build a micro community because once people started seeing my wife's India work, a lot of people in my apartment complex also started joining her, and that is how we really made a micro community to help out people.
It's an incredible story of the community coming together, following really an extraordinary example by you and your wife and your family. And I understand that Micron has also pitched in to help and make things a little safer. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So, well, actually, this in India it started a bit late, but we were observing a lot of proactive steps taken by Micron, which were very inspiring. Right from Feb 1st, for example, all the domestic travels were frozen for right reason for our safety. Because I am from sales, I am on road for at least 10 days in a month. So first, we were not able to relate on the wisdom of this particular decision, but now in hindsight, that was the best decision that came. Then the second thing was, even in the earning calls, our leadership would always talk about how we should be a responsible business, how we should really know we all the proactive steps taken to take care of our vendors, ecosystem, and the community work that was done with the grant of $35 million for global communities and $1 million for India. So it was very inspiring to see the way Micron was proactively working and taking a leadership in terms of basically as a responsible business. That is how I look at it. And that is what was really inspiring. I think the vision and the values that Micron stands for is what really makes the difference. And by the way, it also makes all 37,000 of us as one.
Well, I mean, it's so true to see the values that we live as a company really coming to life in this whole difficult situation that we're all facing together. And maybe just to wrap things up here, Viral, tell us a little bit more about what it means to you to be able to lead this kind of an effort in your community, also to be helping lead the COVID-19 task force in terms of our response locally in Micron India, and kind of, what's that represented for you to have that opportunity to be able to make a difference?
Absolutely. So that is one of I think the biggest opportunities all of us had to really make an impact real time. And I mean, we are, to be very honest, we have education, we have a job. So we are relatively quite taken care compared to a lot of vulnerables like daily wagers, slum dwellers, and lower middle class people who were badly impacted. And what was very inspiring is that the entire task force teams, the way 70 plus people globally really overnight just came up and started doing a lot of activities. And then along with that, the kind of activity that started even in India with basic focus on three basic aspects. One was on the food security, second was on the medical protection, and third was on communities' livelihood and innovation, of course, which is one of our key values or core values rather, with which we are enabling a lot of innovation with some of the institutions for disaster relief. So these were the 3 or 4 focus areas with which we started, and our vision, which was laid out by our community task force leadership, was also to be a multiplier, to have basically an N+1 effect, right, for all the communities and how we can really enable their endeavors to be successful. So I'm very glad to see that we were able to basically enable 1.5 million meals in India, thanks to one of our NGO partners, Akshaya Patra. We were able to give 100 ventilators through one of the Agwa ventilators or Agwa Healthcare, which is one of the very innovative company in medical equipment where Micron is also associated with. We were able to give 5,000 PPE kits. We are helping out right now 125 plus women, including 27 single mothers with livelihoods, by giving them opportunity to build masks. And we are also helping with RO water sanitation plant, RO water purifying plants, and so many other things. So it's really a feeling of gratitude for Micron, because Micron gave us, all of us, this opportunity to really make an impact. And Bombay, if you look at it, right, Bombay is a city where you have the largest slum, right, in the Asia at least, and you also have the richest people in Asia, and you have a lot of big companies as well. So it has both the extremes. So it was just an extension and very symbiotic or synergetic work that we did. Every evening I would do that. My wife would cook every afternoon, and I distribute every evening, and then in the afternoons we also have this task force, so I can always connect those dots and get those inputs from the ground and do that value add. So it was a great experience that way in terms of impact.
Well, it's incredible. And I think it's just another amazing story about how our Micron team members around the world are really stepping up to make a difference during this pandemic. And, Viral, to your point, really making sure that we know, when we know that we are the fortunate ones, that we have been working for a company like Micron who has been putting such a focus on helping our team members keep us safe and helping our communities, that, team members like you and your colleagues there in India are finding opportunities to give back and to give, pay it forward to our community members who really need the help. It's really extraordinary and very,
Yes,
very,
Martina.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Martina. And it also opened a lot of awareness for us, right? I mean, we never knew, right? For example, I always heard that, for example, tuberculosis. I used to hear stories about that from my grandmother, right? Like a lot of people would die, but it was not part of my awareness that in my 100, 200 meters vicinity, people are dying of tuberculosis. And that is one of the things I realized when I was distributing food, that one of the mid-aged lady died of tuberculosis just a month back. And they had literally nothing. And another homeless lady who was her neighbor, they were just all living side by side, was taking care of their kids. So what we are doing is a very small little thing, but what they are doing, despite so little of resources, is something incredible. And this also reinforces our faith in humanity and great future for all of us going forward.
It's an incredibly powerful message and something that we all have had the opportunity to see. And thank you so much for shining a light on really these important causes, Viral. And thank you to all of you for tuning in to this very special Heart of Micron episode.